It's Wednesday, August 12th, and this is now on H&N.
Today we learn the percentage of COVID-19 cases military service members and their families account for.
We're here talking about saving lives, not about political grandstanding.
The Department of Health calls a surprise visit by a group of state senators showmanship, but lawmakers say they're ready to help.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris appear together publicly for the first time as running mates. I'm Natalie Brent in Delaware with a look at the historic ticket.
An environmental catastrophe is underway. I'm Ian Lee with the oil spill threatening endangered species.
These stories, plus 4 Hawaiian monk seals, are now living their best life back in the wild. Coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon, I'm Jonathan, your director producer. This is Ashley, you're watching This Is Now. We want to begin today with the latest numbers from the Department of Health. Unfortunately, there's been more COVID-19 related deaths.
Hey everyone, health officials say 2 more patients with COVID-19 have died, bringing Hawaii's death toll to 38. Officials say the latest fatalities are both Oahu men who are in the 40 to 59-year-old age range. There were 2 more deaths yesterday that we reported. Those are also included in today's count. DOH is also reporting 202 new COVID-19 cases today. The breakdown shows 197 are on Oahu, 2 are on the Big Island, 2 are on Kauai, and 1 is on Maui. Officials say there are multiple clusters of infection, including 5 distinct restaurant clusters. However, they say each cluster involves a few employees at single locations and no transmission to customers has been identified at this time. Officials also say an employee potluck at Honolulu Hale is a potential transmission source for 11 cases among city workers. We expect to be hearing from Mayor Caldwell later today. Meanwhile, the military is giving us insight on just how many cases the service members account for. Here's Lacey Denise with more on that.
Service members and their families represent about 7% of the coronavirus cases in Hawaii. The Star Advertiser reports that the data was released in a memo from the admiral in charge of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. According to the memo, Admiral Phil Davidson said about 204 service members are among the 2,914 cases in the state. He also said all military commands in Hawaii were operating at health protection condition Charlie, an elevated risk of sustained community transmission. Just a day after the memo was sent out, the Hawaii Emergency Management Agency said a 14-day self-quarantine exemption previously granted for military family members arriving on permanent change of station orders had been revoked. Approximately 43,000 active duty military members, 9,600 National Guard and Reserve, 60,000 dependents, and 20,000 military employees live and work in Hawaii. For This Is Now, I'm Lacey Denise.
New today, Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard is renewing her plea to fire state health leaders. On Twitter, she called out Governor Ige, saying it's his responsibility. Gabbard cited the alleged lack of contact tracers in the Department of Health, saying, quote, "This is gross negligence. Anderson and Park need to go." Earlier this month, Gabbard said Health Director Bruce Anderson and Chief Epidemiologist Sarah Park were failing the people of Hawaii. Meanwhile, the DOH may get some help from lawmakers. This after state senators made a surprise visit, revealing some inadequate numbers of contact tracers. Mark Carpenter has the update.
State Senate President Ron Kochi tells Hawaii News Now that he and Senate leaders met with David Ige Monday, and the governor expressed some concern about how the visit came about. In this letter to Hawaii News Now, State Health Director Bruce Anderson described the move as blatant political showmanship. But Kochi says the Senate is working to find solutions.
We're here talking about saving lives, not about political grandstanding and trying to make points at the expense of someone else. I cannot stress enough, our primary goal is to make sure that the people here in Hawaii are safe.
The state Senate COVID committee talked to swamped contact tracers, the department short of staff, equipment, and space. So the Senate is willing to provide all of the above, including use of the Senate chamber, Capitol conference rooms, and encouraged a move to the convention center, which still has workstations set up to handle a surge in unemployment claims.
For at least a month, we'd have some space available if space was an issue. And if we needed to reach out to our employees to find out who might be available, just as we responded to the call for help at unemployment insurance, we stand ready to assist.
As cases have spiked, so has criticism of Department of Health management. In his meetings with the governor, Kochi tells us he hasn't discussed changes in leadership.
And the last thing I said to him is, let's get everybody in the room, come up with a plan to go forward. Looking back isn't going to do us any good.
As for when all interested parties will be meeting, Kochi says there is no set date, but he is in regular contact with the Senate COVID committee and the governor's office. The Department of Health tells us they are reviewing the Senate's offer to provide resources and thanked senators for their support. Mark Carpenter, Hawaii News Now.
10 residents at the IHS men's shelter on Sumner Street have tested positive for the virus. All patients were taken to the quarantine facility managed by the Department of Health, but we're told some are refusing to stay. Over the past week, at least 2 patients walked out of the facility. Police sources tell us one of the men came back on his own. The other was arrested nearly 24 hours later, hanging out outside the men's shelter and not wearing a mask, according to sources. Mass testing is now underway.
The state's Department of Education has revealed 13 people have been infected on school campuses since late June. One was on the Garden Isle, the rest were on Oahu. The cases involved 10 employees and 3 summer school students. The DOE says it notified close contacts of those people, but the Hawaii State Teachers Association complained that the DOE did not alert the public, leaving principals to warn their school communities about the cases.
I think the DOE has an obligation to share which schools have contracted the coronavirus. They should inform of how many people are being quarantined.
It's targeted notification for who needs to know because they are impacted. We are not doing broad brush reporting at this time.
The DOE is asking the health department for a designated team of contact tracers for public schools.
Hawaii News Now hosted our Back to Square One town hall with some of the doctors who have been central to the coronavirus response in Hawaii. Here's some of the highlights.
I want to talk about with you is how this virus spreads. What do we know now that we didn't fully realize 6 months ago? Dr. Green, you first.
Well, thank you for having all of us. I think we know now, and I'll speak broadly, that we are as susceptible as any other state or any other country in the world to rapid spread. We felt that we could contain it without experiencing that kind of surge, and we have done an extraordinary job, and many thanks to our healthcare providers, our first responders, and so on. But we now realize that this is an extremely contagious disease, that if we let our guard down like we did over the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks, that we can see calamitous spread and quickly. We experienced that basically from July 4th weekend. It's gone up, and without contact tracing and testing, it's very difficult to contain the spread. So we've learned a great deal, and we are now, of course, experiencing the consequences of that, which is higher numbers in our hospitals and, unfortunately, very unfortunately, a larger number of individuals who will pass away. So we're learning that we are human and susceptible like the rest of the world.
Dr. Miskovich, lessons learned?
I think, Keahi, one of the biggest things, if I go back to the start of this, is there was all these rumors that this was just kind of going to follow the same path as a flu, and then we're going to have some seasonality, and then there was going to be this rumor that, once we hit the summer, especially in a place like Hawaii, that, it's all going to go away. Well, clearly, this is a respiratory droplet virus. It doesn't matter about weather, about temperature. This is the most virulent pandemic that the world has seen in modern history, and it's spread through person to person. So that myth has to be off the door. Any comparison to this that I still hear, which is really disturbing, to flu has to be taken out. This is not the flu, and it is much more contagious and much more deadly. Finally, we did have a minor mutation, and that mutation has helped to get this to where it is now, where it is more contagious because that little viral particle is quicker and easier to stick to our membranes. So from where we started to now, I think we have to understand also that looking forward, this is not going away. It's only going to go away if we do something about it as a population, like I'm sure we're going to touch on tonight. And then there's going to be the discussion of where a vaccine will come in, but that's not the panacea either. Everybody's going to have to stand up and even do more of their own part, because it's up to us as individuals.
Dr. Gallagher, your hospital has dealt with more patients than anybody in Hawaii. You're seeing it firsthand. What are you learning?
I think, first of all, we knew very little about the virus to begin with. And as Dr. Miskovich said, it is very, very infectious, very contagious. And I think that might have been underappreciated. But we learned as we went. And I think the biggest take-home message for me is that as a team, a healthcare team, and this is not just for Queens systems, this is across the state, we've actually been able to treat these patients probably a little bit more effectively. And I think when we worked together, we saw that we could suppress some of those numbers that you're now seeing a rise in. So I'm sad that the numbers have crept up the way they have. But I really think what we showed early on was that when we work and do the right things together, we can make a difference. And that's really what I'm hoping for out of the sort of community response to this is really we can suppress those numbers again, I think.
Voters got their first look at the newly minted Biden-Harris ticket when Joe Biden made his first public appearance with Kamala Harris since announcing her as his running mate. Natalie Brand is in Delaware.
Kamala, the floor is yours.
Senator Kamala Harris joined Joe Biden in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware, to officially launch the new Democratic ticket.
I am incredibly honored by this responsibility, and I'm ready to get to work.
The candidates are already taking aim at President Trump.
He's issuing executive orders and making promises that in the end will defund the Social Security system while insisting that this virus will disappear.
President Trump is already punching back.
I was more surprised than anything else because she did so poorly. Many people did much better than her in the primaries. She did very poorly in the primaries. And that's like a poll. That's like a poll.
Biden said he wanted to find a running mate who could add balance and wants an administration to look like the country it serves.
As a child of immigrants, she knows personally how immigrant families enrich our country, as well as the challenges of what it means to grow up Black and Indian American in the United States of America.
Harris is the first Black woman and the first South Asian American to be on a major party's presidential ticket.
She can reach more people. She has, as far as women and people of color.
And at 55, Harris is more than 2 decades younger than Biden, who at 77 would be the oldest sitting president if they win in November. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Wilmington, Delaware.
Health authorities in New Zealand are scrambling to trace the source of a new outbreak of the coronavirus as the nation's largest city goes back into lockdown. 4 cases among people in one Auckland household were the country's first cases of local transmission in 102 days. A health official said one of the infected people works at a food cold storage facility. New Zealand has been praised for its virus response after coming close to eradicating the virus with a strict lockdown and border quarantines.
Airline masking rules keep changing, and every time they do, they seem to get tougher. Howard Dykes reports.
Most major airlines no longer allow any medical exemptions for passengers ages 2 and older. These include American and United, Southwest and JetBlue, Alaska and Frontier. The 2 airlines still permitting medical exemptions in some cases are Delta and Hawaiian, but both require independent medical confirmation at the airport, and if you don't pass, you don't fly. Delta has banned 130 people from flying Delta. USDA extends to September 11 the deadline for farmers to apply for the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Specialty crops have been added to the eligibility list, including bok choy and dragon fruit, but the program still does not cover coffee or macadamia nuts. Lahaina Gateway has a new tenant, Ace Hardware, in the old Barnes & Noble space. The grand opening will be Saturday.
Right now, a major oil spill is taking place in the Indian Ocean. One nation has already declared a state of emergency. Ian Lee has the very latest on this developing story.
A ribbon of black stains the blue waters off Mauritius. More than 250,000 gallons of oil began leaking from a Japanese oil tanker last month after it hit a coral reef, slowly losing a quarter of its cargo. Black sludge washing up on the island's pristine beaches.
Deep inside these mangroves, I mean, it's thick. Check this. Buckets and buckets full of thick oil like this. Like, it doesn't get thicker than that pure oil here.
Local volunteers struggle to clean up their island paradise, while others prepare floating booms to contain the spill, which has already killed wildlife and threatens endangered species.
There's the pink pigeon, there's giant tortoises, there's a tree there that's said to be 400 years old.
There had been concern the ship would break apart before all the remaining oil was pumped out of the vessel, but that task is now complete. The job of cleaning up and paying for the disaster is only just beginning. Ian Lee, CBS News, London.
Some heartbreaking images there.
I know, that's awful.
Just wish the best and for a speedy cleanup. All right, guys, we got to switch gears here just a little bit. Let's take you outside. There's our camera pointed towards Diamond Head. Beautiful day yet again, and I think we're going to see a lot of the repeat of the same. Here's Billy with an update.
Happy Aloha Wednesday. We're recording this after 9 a.m. and I'm Billy V sitting in for Guy Hoggy. Let's go ahead and start with the oceans. We've got box jellyfish out in the water. That's if you're going to be on the south and west facing shoreline. So if you're going to do some exercise, just know that they're out there, so that may not be a good time to go. East facing shore, that's a trade wind swell 2 to 4 feet. A little choppy out there. Your UV index is at 12. High pressure, it's kind of far from the state, so that's why the trade winds, when they're coming towards the islands, are not as strong. But you notice we do have a bunch of moisture that is upstream from us, so we will get some windward and Mako showers drifting leeward at times. And as we walk you through the next couple of days, you can see it's going to be pretty much trade wind weather all the way through the week into next week, so that's really good news. Let's take a look at the eastern Pacific. We do have a tropical storm Elida, which is out in the waters, and it's winds of 65 miles per hour, gusts of up to 75, and you can see that with its track, it's not going to pose any threat to any land mass, and it's going to go probably parallel to the California coast and go straight up north as we go. And we're watching it though, and just a reminder, hurricane season, we're in the middle of it, so it's always good to be prepared. Taking a look at the 7-day forecast, you take today, sunshine, windward and Mako clouds, drifting leeward at times, easterly winds 10 to 15 miles per hour. You can copy and paste that all the way through the week into next week. It's going to be a great day for you. Get the latest on air, online, on your mobile device, and at HawaiiNewsNow.com.
I like that copy and paste. Speaking of computers and internet, here's what the internet's talking about right now. You guys like Dr. Pepper? Because if you do, you may have noticed there's a shortage out there.
What?
Yeah, it's the latest item that the company says is on a list of items we're seeing less of. You know, we've seen toilet papers on the shelf for a while. We've talked about how Clorox is hard to find still, and it's going to take till next year to get updated with all of that product. But the brand tweeted that it is seeing this pandemic shortage and that sales of Dr. Pepper have actually increased over the last 4 years. So that's contributing to the shortage as well. Just more people want it, so they say. They say they're working with distributors and partners to meet the increased demand, but also customers should just keep checking the store shelves because they're working on it to get it restocked.
Why Dr. Pepper?
I'm a Dr. Pepper fan. I am.
Are people making bread with it or something? Is there
Maybe
a secret we don't know about? Should we go get some?
Oh man, I have a Dr. Pepper recipe for you. I told you in the break that my great grandfather used to drink it with prune juice, gross. But when Easter Sunday was around in my family, they would make the glaze of the ham out of Dr. Pepper.
Sure.
Yeah. So good. Okay. I don't think that's contributing.
I don't think that's why.
But all right. More flashback talk.
That's right. We've been telling you all about these reboots and reunions of popular 90s sitcoms. Well, here's another one in the works. A fan-made trailer that reimagined the classic 90s sitcom The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air as a serious drama racked up millions of views last year. So Will Smith is now producing a one-hour show based on it after calling the viral video an idea that's brilliant. Several top streaming services are reportedly in a bidding war for the rights.
I believe it. There's just such a need for content, and we keep talking about these reboots from our childhood. There's more and more. What's next?
I know. I was a big Fresh Prince fan.
Yeah.
This is what else we found. A California-based company has unveiled an electric supercar. Hyperion's XP1 is powered by compressed hydrogen and will be able to go 1,000 miles on a single tank. Now, the company says the car has much longer range than a battery-powered electric car because compressed hydrogen has more power per liter than a battery, and the all-wheel drive car can also go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in a little over 2 seconds. Hyperion's CEO says several prototype cars are already operational, and the first production cars are expected to be delivered to customers by the end of next year.
Gotta say, it looks really cool.
Yeah.
All right, in a galaxy far, far away. Sorry, guys, I'm not talking about Star Wars. But you know I love Star Wars. No, this is even better because we're talking about something way cooler because it's real.
Wow.
It's a galaxy that astronomers say looks a lot like ours. This picture was just published today in the Journal of Nature. The galaxy is more than 12 billion light years away from ours, which means we're seeing the galaxy as it appeared in the universe only 1.4 billion years ago.
So cool.
Yeah, so it might be younger than me. It's very cool.
Yeah, and this is interesting. So, of course, the pandemic has closed gyms and led more people like me to stress eating, and that has many Americans carrying a few extra pounds and looking for new clothes. Naomi Ruckham explains.
A few years ago, Lauren Wire decided to lose weight and successfully dropped 50 pounds.
When the pandemic hit, I was in full workout mode, was the lowest I've ever been.
Even with gyms shut down, Lauren found ways to stay active, but she struggled to eat healthy, causing her to regain 10 pounds.
When I fluctuate, I do need to get a new pair of pants or a new shirt to fit.
Apparel brands are seeing more customers like Lauren. Raghav Sharma runs Perfectly, which lets consumers create avatars for online shopping. Starting in April, the company saw a 20% spike in people changing their online measurements.
Our hypothesis is with people being locked in and not having much to do, there's a lot of eating going on, there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of boredom, and people are getting bigger.
While shoppers need new sizes, they're also making more returns, which can get pretty pricey for retail companies. According to retail software company Narvar Inc., online returns doubled from mid-March to early June, saddling brands with more than $800 million in additional expenses.
People truly aren't sure of their size, so they're still ordering 3 of everything.
Lauren can attest to that.
You know, I bought 30 bathing suits and returned 27 of them.
She's now working to drop the weight gained during the pandemic and keep it off. Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
Certainly can relate here.
That's right. And there's more good news we want to tell you about. Here at home, 4 monk seals are back in the wild. The Coast Guard rescued the pups from Midway Atoll 10 months ago after they were prematurely weaned. Now, the seals were taken to the Marine Mammal Hospital in Kona. Now, Hilinai, Leimana, Makekilo, and Kaena are big enough to be on their own at the atoll. 3 of them have satellite tags so researchers can track their progress.
There's been a lot more monk seal sightings since the pandemic. A lot of people are crediting that with just the lack of people out and about on the beaches, less people out there.